Hey everybody, it's Mike Young from aplantbaseddiet.org, the nonprofit. And right now I am going live on a number of formats. So you might be watching me on one of our YouTube channels or one of our Facebook groups or one of our Facebook pages. And I have a little chat function up here where I can see, because you can see one of the things in the title here is Q&A. And I wanted to just let you guys know at the beginning of this video, and I'll announce it again during the video, but right now and into the future at least, chat is not supported on Facebook groups. So if you want to chat with me, which you easily can, you can type in anything, it'll appear here for me. Just go to our YouTube channel, which is at VeganVideos.info, VeganVideos.info, and it's actually up in the description of the video that you're watching right now. It's at the very end of it, so you won't forget about it. But that's where you want to go if you want to type a question to me, and I'll be able to see it. And like right now, it's telling me, as this is still new to me, so I'm figuring this stuff all out as we go along. And it's showing that I haven't seen anything yet, but it doesn't mean it's not working. It just means that I haven't seen anything yet. We've only been broadcasting live for a couple minutes. So let's give an update. As you can see from the title of this video, we're talking about the hurricane and actually water quality. It kind of brings to mind the concept of water quality when you're talking about the environment and what looks like a natural disaster. And as we know, hurricanes really aren't disasters. They are unfortunately just part of the normal process of what happens in the southeast United States and into the Caribbean and into the Atlantic Ocean. And you know, some people are thinking that these things may have been intensified recently due to climate change factors, and that may be the case. You know, I think that Dorian, which is the one out there right now, was at least at one point considered one of the largest storms ever to hit planet Earth, and definitely at whatever point that was announced, I think like a day or so ago, they said it was the largest storm on the planet at that point in time. Well, it totally pummeled the Bahamas, as you probably heard, which is really bad. Hopefully everybody's okay there. I know that there have been a few people killed, they announced. And, you know, it's hard to tell what pictures are and videos is really from this storm, because I know I've seen some stuff circulating on social media already that shows some pictures that were actually from a storm in Mexico a few years ago. And they proved it by showing the link and showing the picture, which is pretty sad. I didn't even realize that was going on. But it's definitely going on. You really got to check your sources. There's so much stuff out there on the internet, so much stuff that really looks true, but a lot of times isn't. And actually, if you know of some good sources to find out some actual pictures, video from Dorian in the Bahamas as to what's been going on, type a comment. You know, leave it there so people can see. That way we can go back and look at those maybe. And also, if you're out there, just like the video, say hi, something like that, so I know you're out there. Because we're broadcasting on like 10 different channels right now. And like I said, if you can type it on any of them, actually it'll kind of raise awareness that we're talking about this with the hurricane and water quality, because there are a lot of people that probably don't know this information. And that's why I want to talk about it here today, because I think it actually deals with the vegan lifestyle and why the vegan lifestyle is really, you know, an important thing to do to help with the environment. So, oh, one last thing about Hurricane Dorian. Thankfully, at least for the United States and Florida, you know, it's predicted to hit the east coast of Florida, and I am not there right now, which is good. But if you are on the east coast of Florida, I know a lot of areas have supposed to be evacuated, and it looks like it's going to stay out to sea the whole time is what they're thinking. Just move up the east coast to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, but off on the coast. So there will be some heavy rains there on the coast, but not as they were envisioning originally. So this is a good thing. And then the storm will keep going up the coast into Canada and the Atlantic Ocean up there. So that's that. Well, let's get into what I wanted to talk about with climate change. And again, if you want to ask any questions, give me any feedback, just go to VeganVideos.info. It'll take you straight to our YouTube channel. You can find the live feed, and you can type in a channel. You can find the live feed, and you can type in a question right now while I'm having this video. So maybe we can talk about anything else you want to talk about too that might be related. Well, I am wearing a shirt, actually, which you probably saw in my last video. I will show you again. It's our flagship event. It's the Southwest Florida Veg Fest, and it's in, for the last couple of years, Bonita Springs, Florida, and it will be again in Bonita Springs, Florida, in the middle of February, February 16th, I think, Sunday, definitely for sure, Sunday. And it is our flagship event, meaning we've got all the top speakers there. So even if you're watching me and you're not in Florida, Jeff Frank, Mike's weather page, yeah, I've seen that too. That is a good source. Thanks, Jeff. If you're not in Florida, it's in the middle of February, so if you're in the United States and watching this, it's probably really cold weather at that time in the middle of February. So I would say make a destination festival. Make it a destination festival. It's free to get in if you're an attendee, and we got the top name national and worldwide speakers. Go to SWFL VegFest on Facebook, swfl.org. Sorry, swflvegfest.org is our website. You'll find out more information there, and you can RSVP. I don't think all the speaker information may or may not be up yet. I'm not sure, but if you tune into that, RSVP either through Facebook or Eventbrite, you'll get updates as we announce all this stuff. So it'll be really cool. A destination event, like I said, in the cold weather. The weather is near perfect in Florida in February. Okay, so it's hot and humid most of the summer until now. There's hurricane season now. You don't want to visit Florida if you don't live there at those times. At least I wouldn't want to. But February is an amazing time. So mark that in your calendar, SWFL VegFest. Now, kind of since that's our area of biggest concentration, and there's actually a water quality crisis in that area, that is kind of what has brought on the subject of this video. And, anywhere you live, it doesn't have to be Southwest Florida. If you think about it, anything you do on the land, when the rains happen, which they do everywhere unless you're in the desert, but let's say you're not in the desert, the rains happen, they wash anything that you do from the land into the creeks, rivers, lakes, and eventually the ocean, which is part of the issue with the ocean. The ocean is just a dumping ground for literally everything. Everything that you do ever eventually ends up in the ocean. That was kind of the subject of Mountain Veg Fest, which we had in Lebanon, New Hampshire in July. And we actually had Captain Paul Watson from Sea Shepherd there, which is really cool. And we're hoping to get him next year. So look that up too if you're interested in seeing Captain Paul Watson live. And he's actually on our, you can watch the video of that on our channel, which is VeganVideos.info. Just look on there for a playlist for Mountain Veg Fest. You can find where Paul Watson talked. But it's the oceans are dying, and that's the problem. And not only are the oceans dying, but everything in the middle is dying because we're, in a way, just polluting and poisoning the water. So what can you do as an individual that will help out water quality, whether it's in Southwest Florida or wherever you are? Now, there are some factors that are beyond your individual control that have been brought up, like, for instance, in Florida. Like they're trying to figure out what's the cause of all this toxic bacteria and toxic algae that's growing in the water. There's many, many reasons for it, but I think that the biggest one is that there's actually too many nutrients in the water. So where are these, and there could be chemicals as well, but I think in the case of this, it's more nutrients. Where are these nutrients coming from? Well, outside of your individual control, there may be a number of bad septic systems on properties that use septic. I don't know if you're familiar. I have a real estate background. And septic systems are a way of disposing of your human waste that you create in your household. And also in businesses, but let's just say for your house, if you're connected to city water and sewer, it goes down to their treatment plant and gets treated. If you're not connected there, you have a septic system. Sometimes they're bad, and they let basically untreated sewage seep into the groundwater or into neighboring streams, which makes it into rivers, lakes, and eventually oceans, right? Same concept. Well, there's a problem on the city side too. So even if your individual system is leaking, you don't know it, maybe your neighbor's is, well, maybe you're connected to the city or municipal system. Well, unfortunately, there have been many, many reports recently, and they're not everywhere, really. Yes, in Florida, but also everywhere, where instead of these systems treating the water and sending off treated water into the waterways, because it still goes into the waterway. Okay, you got to realize this too. If you don't realize this, anything you put down the drain in your house, unless you have a gray water system or unless you're dumping it illegally somewhere else, or you're just putting it into a holding tank, in almost every case, it's going into the waterways. So it's either going to go in treated, and a septic system treats it in a way. Anyway, it's a low volume system, or a high volume system like a municipal system. They treat it too, but unfortunately, they have accidents at these systems, and they happen on a regular basis. And when I say accident, I mean what will happen is they will release this untreated or partially treated sewage. It will get dumped into the local waterway, and it is just an absolute disaster when this happens. You don't really hear about it till way after the fact, but this stuff happens on a regular basis. So much of this is totally outside of your control. Okay, so this is the outside of your control issues. Other things are maybe I don't know, landfills that were done wrong, which is also somewhat inside of your control if you're throwing away trash, or chemical plants or other manufacturing facilities, but that's somewhat within your control if you don't buy their products. But if you don't know about it, then maybe not. Let's get into some things that are within your control. Okay, let's get into the vegan lifestyle, because of course animal products, if you've been watching the news or just about anything recently, are known to be very, very high polluting activities, specifically the raising and the farming of animals. Now, why is this? Well, one of the biggest reasons is because we just talked about how when humans have waste, they're required to go through treatment facilities, either a municipal system or a septic system, and they're required to be designed properly, and they have very high standards in general, unless they have accidents or they're not functioning properly. For animal farms, however, that's just not true. Yes, they do have lagoons and ponds and holding areas for waste, if they even have them. And the other problem is that there are way, way more animals that are being farmed on the planet than there are humans. So you've got waste from all of these animals. And where does it go? Well, it basically ends up in the local waterways. So if you're in an area where they're doing animal farming, which is most areas, and some areas more than others, let's say like the coast of North Carolina, that's a big hog farming area. They are in these low-lying areas, and they are farming these animals, and they are doing all kinds of pooping and peeing all over the place. And those things are not being run through any type of a septic system or any type of a municipal treatment system. All right, so just on a basic level, even if you don't understand how these things work, you can understand, well, they're not running these wastes that are more waste than humans, okay? Way more waste in almost every case. So what's going to happen? They're going to pollute the water. And even if they have a system, many, many times these animal farms are located in areas where you can't even grow crops, where people can't live, like floodplains. So they're typically subject to flooding. You probably heard a lot about the flooding that happened in North Carolina through last year's hurricane season, 2018, and the damage, the death it caused for the farm animals. But of course, what happened to all their waste? If they were in these holding ponds, where did that waste go? Well, you know, it went straight into the waterways. And it's way, way more waste than humans produce, right? So let me know if you have any questions on this. Type a comment, give me a hi, like I said, give me a thumbs up, and go to VeganVideos.info, look at our live stream, and you can type me a comment there if you have a comment about any of this stuff, about the water quality, because it is somewhat complicated, but I think that most questions that people might have are really answered fairly simply. They're not, it's a complicated way that all these farms are run, but the simple explanation is that they're not run to the standard that human waste is processed, if they do anything at all. And like I said, they use a lot of low-lying areas for these animals because crops can't grow, people can't live there because their houses would flood out, but then they flood these waterways with all this crap, literally, from animal products. So that's one way. One way to clean up the water, no matter where you are, to reduce the nutrient overload in the water from these activities is going to be, and I'm not talking about human waste, animal waste, is going to be no longer use or eat animal products. You will have a major contribution. Now, like in Florida, for instance, the way Florida works is, if you're familiar with it, most of Central Florida drains in the Lake Okeechobee, and then instead of historically flowing south from there, they set it out to east and west lake water, which lake water, if you don't know, is polluted water in almost every lake. I would not swim in it. I wouldn't do anything in it. It's just sitting there until it's going to drain out into somewhere else, right? That's the whole purpose of a lake. Now, instead of draining into the Everglades like it does, they just shoot it out the rivers, which is not, not going the way it's supposed to be. So it's not cleaning itself out. It's not, and it's jacking up the nutrient loads in these rivers and then into the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Ocean. Specifically, the Gulf side is really seeing more, I think, right now on south of Florida. So you will prevent some nutrient overload, or probably a good bit of nutrient overload coming out of Lake Okeechobee if you live in south of Florida, if you stop eating animal products, because you're not going to get that runoff from all those animal farms that are north of the lake. Okay, that's where most of the animal farms are, but of course all that land drains into the lake and then goes out to the east or the west. All right, so that talks about animal products. Now let's get a little more specific, because our nonprofit deals not only with the vegan lifestyle, but with what we call a veganic whole plant lifestyle. Now, for instance, in Florida, they're talking about big sugar being a problem. Well, big sugar is, if you look at whole plant lifestyle, it's not part of the whole plant lifestyle. Processed sugar is not something. You're welcome, Cheryl. Thanks so much for tuning in. So sugar is a very highly processed version of a plant, and it has little to really no nutritional value, and it's added to food just to make it more appetizing to you and to addict you. Okay, that's the basic thing. And maybe the dentists are in on this one too, because it causes tremendous amounts of tooth decay, of course. So that sugar issue is happening in Lake south of Okeechobee, and sugar, I guess, sugar is mostly, like most farming activities, a non-organic activity. So they are pumping all kinds of polluted fertilizer, water, added chemical fertilizers, added pesticides, added herbicides back into the lake water before they shoot it out. So that's the whole thing. That's the whole controversy with big sugar in Florida. So to avoid that, just don't eat anything with added sugar. I know it's hard. It's very, very hard, because almost everything out there has sugar as an added ingredient these days. So you have to just start learning more about the lifestyle, and that's something that we advocate, a veganic whole plant lifestyle, whole food plant-based, WFPB, you may have heard of that. So that's one aspect, is whole food plant-based. The other aspect is organic. You really, if you want to help yourself, again, whole food plant-based is about helping yourself too, and the land, and the environment, all right? Because you're cutting out all these processed foods that will never be grown, farmed, whatever. Same thing with organic. You vote with your dollar, because anything that's not organic is going to be using a whole lot of chemical fertilizers to grow plants. We're just talking about plants. Forget, we're off of animal agriculture now. We're just on plants. Growing of plants can cause severe environmental destruction. I just want to make sure you and everyone else out there is aware of this. Because if you're concerned about water quality, no matter where you are, whether it's in South of Florida or anywhere, you've got to be concerned about using organic methods to farm plants. Because yes, plants are cleaner than animals in terms of agriculture, but they've got to be organic to make that real difference in water quality and pollution. So again, organic, if you're not familiar with organic, means you're not going to add chemical fertilizers when you're growing these plants. You're not going to add chemical herbicides that will kill unwanted weeds when you're growing the plants. You're not going to add chemical pesticides which will kill unwanted insects when you're growing the plants. They're also not going to be GMO. You may have heard of that, genetically modified organism. They're not going to be a GMO, because GMOs work on the idea that you spray an entire field with glyphosate, which is Roundup. Instead of just individually spraying weeds, you spray the whole damn field, okay, which could be hundreds or thousands of acres, with glyphosate, which of course runs off into the water. You're cutting all this stuff out of the equation. Now, not only is it better for the environment, but it's also better for your health, because there is no way that these chemicals are going to do you any good. I think we all know that. The only question is how much bad are they going to do, and we don't really have enough data to say that right now, although there's plenty of court cases saying that glyphosate causes cancer, and they're starting to make awards with Monsanto, which I believe is now Bayer, B-A-Y-E-R, something like that. If you know, type in the comments. Again, vegan, whole food plant-based, WFPB. You may have heard of that. The other aspect is organic. You really, if you want to help yourself, again, VeganVideos.info. Look on our live stream and type your comments there, and I'll get them right away. I already got Jeff's comment and Cheryl's comment, so thanks. And all right, so this is a very complicated process. I don't know if you follow all of what I just said about organic growing of plants, but if you think about it, let's just say first of all, most every single plant out there that's grown, I'd say the majority of plants that are grown, first of all, are not even grown to feed humans. They are grown to feed animals for animal agriculture, and almost all of those are not organically grown. So almost all you're getting, it's like a double whammy when you're eating animal products in terms of hurting the water quality and hurting the environment. You are polluting tremendously with the animal waste, which is untreated or minimally treated before it's dumped into our waterways. And then you're hitting us again because all these animals are eating plants. Guess what? All your animals eat plants, okay? That's where they get all the protein and everything else. But they're eating plants that are not organic in almost every case, all right? And we're just talking about the animal agriculture side right now. And what does it mean? Again, let's go over that again. What does non-organic plants do to the environment? Well, they're dumping chemical fertilizers on these plants. They're putting down chemical herbicides to kill the unwanted weeds around these plants. They're putting down chemical pesticides to kill off all the unwanted insects around these plants. They're using chemicals to get rid of the unwanted weeds and pests. And I know I'm explaining this in a very basic manner, but a lot of people don't understand how things are grown. Most people, like I had a garden when I was growing up, okay, but most people don't understand this. And actually, I didn't even understand the concept of organic when I was growing up. I thought it was good. Oh, you got a weed here, let's spray it. You got a bug on this plant, let's spray the whole plant. That is not what you want to do. Okay, that is not the preferred method. You know what? It's the cheapest method. Okay, I think we'll agree on that. It is the cheapest method. It drives down the costs for your animal products because they use non-organic plants to feed the animals, and it drives down the cost of all of the other stuff that you buy that is a plant-based food because they're doing it in the least expensive way possible. And you may think, oh, these chemicals are expensive, right? Well, they are somewhat expensive, I guess, but you cut all the labor part out. Nobody has to weed anything. Nobody has to get rid of any bugs. And in the future, though, I think that that's going to change. Not only because I believe that consumer demand is going to increase the demand for organic stuff, because when you learn all this stuff and you're like, holy crap, by buying the stuff, I am ordering somebody out there on a farm to grow in a non-organic manner. That's what you're doing every time you buy any type of food, especially an animal product, okay? Forget animal products. Let's assume you're not buying any animal products. Whenever you're buying any food at all, plant foods. If you're not buying organic, you are paying someone to spray chemicals all over the land, which run off when it rains into the waterways, and all these chemicals cause all kinds of problems. I think we know that. There's one thing we can all agree on, I think, is that all chemicals have negative side effects for humans and animals. Is that right? Type yes if you believe that in the comments. I'll say it again. All chemicals have negative side effects for humans and animals. So if you want to protect humans, avoid chemicals. If you want to protect animals, avoid chemicals. Now, I'm not talking about some kind of case where you've got some kind of you were in some freak accident and things have to, you've got to bring yourself back to life for some animal. Use chemicals in that case, but don't use them on a regular basis. Don't make a lifestyle out of it. That's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about lifestyle, right? What you do all the time, not what you do in some rare emergency situation. But if you're listening to what I'm saying, thanks, Cheryl. Yes, okay, good. If you're listening to what I'm saying, you'll recognize that the world we live in is just full of chemicals all around, and this is causing the destruction of our environment, the destruction of humans and animals, the destruction of our water. There is no question in that. The only question is how much destruction, what's the level of destruction? because the preferred method is going to be organic, everything, organic lifestyle. And actually, veganic is even better because veganic removes animal products from the equation. Not only is it chemicals and chemical fertilizers, chemical herbicides, chemical pesticides, they're all out, but also animal products like using manures and stuff in growing crops is out too. So bone meal is another example. You don't find that in veganic farming. This is a pure form of agriculture. I think that in the future, this is my opinion, that's where we're going to be heading in the future, is organic and veganic lifestyle. And I think it's so important. If you live in Southwest Florida and you're watching this, please tag your friends in the comments. They'll see it, okay? Even if I don't see your comment, your friends will see that they've tagged you. Watch this video. Make your more comments. I'll go back. I'll look at the comments. I'll respond. Maybe I'll make a future video too out of some of the input that you guys give me. But especially if you live in Southwest Florida, the water quality is a mess. I think we all agree. It's reached a state where it's just an absolute negative. People are not buying houses. People are not vacationing. People can't go near the water. They got to wear masks. It's because of the things that are within your control. Remember, we talk about two different things. What's outside your control, what's within your control. The things that are within your control are caused by your lifestyle choices. And whether you're paying someone to use chemicals or you're not, that is something that every person needs to do to impact positively the water quality. Because even if we're not talking about, let's say you hear near you the water, okay, the water's not from animal agriculture, we did testing and it's not. Or some of it's from septic, some of it's from these disasters they have in municipal systems. Okay, some of it. Where's the rest of it coming from? Well, we just talked about agriculture, right? We talked about non-organic forms of agriculture, whether it's plants or animals. That's a huge load on the water system. That's a huge load, okay? And each and every one of us is responsible. Now, in addition to agriculture, commercial and residential landscapes are also contributors. And if you understand what I am saying in terms of how your non-organic food choices negatively impact the water quality around you, you'll also understand why landscapes will negatively impact the water quality in wherever you live. Okay? Now there's two different levels to that with landscapes. This is a complicated subject. Okay, I guess I'm going on and on, but we'll keep talking about it because when you understand one concept, you can move on to the next. You can open up more doors. You can understand all the work that needs to be done, and so much of it can be done on an individual basis. Now, some of you may or may not know that I actually have a landscape business. I've had a landscape business since I was about 8 years old, since I could push a lawnmower to some neighbors' houses and earn some money. And that brings up the concept of the American lawn, or no matter where you are, okay? The American lawn is an environmental disaster. Okay, let me say that again. And I'm in the business. I'm telling you this, I am in the business. And really trying to change the business or get out, or some combination of that. The American lawn is an environmental disaster. Now, why would I say that? Well, if you think about it, in most cases, wherever you see someone's lawn, all right, on the Metacops. What is the Metacops? Bradley Martin TV. Tell me what that is. What is the Metacops? If anybody else knows META, he just made a comment. All right. Are you actually a real Metacop? I don't know what that is. I can't Google it right now. I'm talking to you guys. So just type me in the comments what that is, if you don't mind. All right. Well, in most cases, wherever you have a lawn, it's a non-native landscape. There are only a few areas where fescue or bluegrass or zoysia or whatever the grass might be in your area that's suited can actually grow in your area. Because some can grow in some areas, some can't. There are only a few areas, but those are actually native plants. You would never necessarily find those just growing in the wild. Okay, you wouldn't. So right away, you're changing the landscape. Let's say like you're in the Mid-Atlantic states of the United States. What's the native landscape in almost all those areas? Well, it's a forest. It's a forest, not a lawn. Okay. Now in some small microclimates, you may find that on the Mid-Atlantic United States, but most of the place, if you just have a something growing on its own, untouched by people, it's going to be a forested area. So, and they provide shade, they provide water retention, they reduce runoff, they provide oxygen, all kinds of things. And then let's compare that with a lawn. Now, what does a lawn provide? Well, it provides something to look at that everyone just kind of assumes you're going to have in front of your house, right? You've been trained to not. Would you want to buy a house that had a forest in the front yard? Like, say that you're on a quarter-acre lot in a suburban area, typical house, detached house. Would it look right if you had just trees and a driveway or something, and no lawn? I don't know. I mean, I see a few houses like that, but that's not the idea that most people want, right? Everybody is conditioned by what? I don't know. Society to think you've got to have this lawn, which we already know is not native. That's one level, not native. Okay? But even if you have native plants, let's say your landscape is made up entirely of native plants. Well, how are you taking care of those plants? Because if you're using non-organic methods to take care of those plants, you are contributing to problems with the environment and problems with water quality, just like people who use non-organic forms of agriculture. It's just another non-organic form of maintaining plants, which eventually all runs into the waterways, right? It's the same concept if you think about it. So how many people do you know that have lawns that actually use exclusively organic forms of maintenance? Probably little to none, right? Yeah, that's what I think. And so again, you've got the same problems. You've got chemical fertilizers being put down. You've got chemical herbicides being put down. You've got chemical pesticides being put down. You know, herbicides are to kill the weeds. Pesticides are to kill the unwanted pests. And then, of course, you've got the concept of irrigation. Most lawns, since they're not native, and they wouldn't grow there on their own, they require irrigation. Now, you can say, well, hey, I'm using recycled water or gray water system. Okay, great. But you're still because you're irrigating it, you're even making faster the runoff action that's happening from using non-organic growing methods. So you're polluting the water even faster than it would if you weren't irrigating, whether you're using recycled gray water or not. It doesn't even matter. But let's say you're not, because most people don't use recycled gray water for their irrigation. You're just using, there's a huge water load on grasses, okay, to grow them. There's a huge water load. It's incredibly inefficient. So, like, again, let's take the example of the east coast of the United States. If you didn't have a lawn, you'd probably have a forested area. Would you even ever need to water that forest besides natural rainfall? No. So if you understand that, you can understand what a gigantic water waster the residential and commercial landscape, and I'm including golf courses. I mean, I guess you can have an organic golf course, but it's probably still going to be irrigated. It's going to require tremendous amounts of irrigation. Oh, and let's not forget about the maintenance. Now let's see how much, because that's the business that I'm in, right? I have a landscape business. How much maintenance do you think a forest requires on the east coast of the United States? Probably little to none, right? I think we can all agree on that. Little to none. Well, how much maintenance do you think any other form of landscape that you might put in your yard is going to require? A tremendous amount, I think. And actually, lawns require the most amount of maintenance because you've got to run some really complicated, expensive machine across your lawn once a week, maybe twice a week. Sometimes you can cut it back to maybe every 2 weeks during the growing season anyway. And that doesn't count trimming the plants, weeding stuff, even if you're hand weeding, okay? That stuff takes a tremendous amount of time. And the machinery. Oh, do you think that machinery is all solar-powered electric stuff? No. You know, almost all of it uses gas engines, which are polluting carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. No, it's carbon dioxide. I don't know. Carbon monoxide is the poison that comes out of all internal combustion engines. Don't ever run one in a garage or even in your house, by the way. If you ever thought about that, it'll kill you. It's incredibly dangerous. But of course, if you're using electric equipment, there's none of that. But almost all the equipment is gas powered. So you're needlessly running all this equipment, and again polluting the atmosphere because they all probably have to need their oil change. They all probably leak oil at some point during the course of their lifetime. You can see, look at how many levels we're talking about of water pollution. that are being created. And of course, all of this stuff we're talking about goes into what the water quality looks like in your area. The more of all this stuff that you have, and it seems like this is like the American dream, right? Not only does everyone in the United States want all this stuff, but everyone in the world wants to be like Americans, right? So everyone is aspiring to this stuff. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, because if we go back, why are we aspiring to this stuff? Well, it's just conditioning, brainwashing, whatever you want to call it. There's no real reason I could think of you'd want this, any of this stuff. Oh, and let's not forget that almost every animal product is incredibly detrimental to your health. So you're poisoning yourself internally with the animal muscle when you eat it. It harms your circulatory system, among other things. And then, of course, the landscapes are, poisoning the environment. And I can see an exception for maybe a field to play a soccer game or something like that. But that's all that would be needed. Okay, something like that. But everybody has these, these lawns and landscapes that they don't really need. They just want. Right. That's the difference between a want and a need. Most of this stuff that everyone's doing that's detrimental on so many levels to you, to other people, to the earth, to the water quality, is a want. Okay, it's not a need. You gotta really think about that, because that's not really taught to people so much, I think, unless we're talking about dollars and cents, maybe. But let's just say money is neutral in this area. It's a want, not a need. And of course, we did say that organic stuff's more expensive, which it is, because it's more labor intensive, but let's get into that now. You got to start voting with your dollar. When you vote with your dollar, then organic stuff is going to become less expensive. It just is, because more people will use these methods, more people will start businesses, there'll be more competition, which all this drives down costs for consumers. So that's how it starts. Get the word out. Like I said, tag people in this video. Anybody that you know that needs to hear this message, that is that's brainwashed by society, which is everybody, and it includes me until recently. Okay, really, it includes everyone. Most people just go along. They're like sheep. They do what everybody else is doing. They don't even give it a second thought. But if you really consider all these things and what they're doing to the environment, what they're doing to the water quality, are these large hurricanes becoming, like Dorian, the result of what's, happening with what we're doing to the environment? Because in the past, maybe we weren't doing so much, or we didn't really have that much of an impact. But like we're saying, everyone, this is like the American way, right? And everyone wants to be like Americans. Well, this is only going to have more of an impact on everyone going forward unless we do something about it. And I'm just trying to talk here about some factual evidence. If you've got some more information, let me know. But these are just, when I say evidence, these are just some facts about general concepts that we use in today's world. Now, where's it going to go? Here's where I think it's going to go. For instance, technology. All right, I drive an electric car. At least I also have other vehicles that are internal combustion engine, ICE vehicles. But I'm phasing those out. Okay, but the one I put the most miles on by far every single year is electric. Excuse me. And not only is it electric, but it's going to be self-driving soon. It's a Tesla. And if you're watching this on my adigitalnomad.net channel, this is where the tie-in is. If you've been wondering, what is this guy talking about? Okay, well, and I think that in general, electric cars aren't perfect, but they are the most efficient and environmentally form of vehicular transportation available today. So if you're concerned about that, you should really be concerned about ditching your car. I mean, look at all the stuff I told you that your landscape maintenance is doing to pollute the environment. Even if you only talk about the maintenance aspect of somebody else running machines to take care of it. Well, you're running your machine to drive you around too. That's going to have an effect. You're going to be leaking oil on the roads, which is going to get into the creeks, rivers, lakes, oceans. You're going to be polluting our water with the oil that leaks out of your internal combustion engine vehicle. Okay? So don't think that even if you're doing everything else I already said, if you're driving around in a gasoline car, you can still do better. And it's not about being perfect. Let's talk about that too. It's about doing better, doing the best that you can. So that's the spirit in which I'm discussing these concepts, is doing the best you can, continually learning, and using the newer technology. So that's what I'm saying. I'm getting into technology. Technology is going to solve these problems for us, all right? Like it seems to always has. It always seems like just as we need a solution, well, someone develops some technology that solves the problem that we've been having, right? And I think that there's been many examples of that over the years. If you have one, type it in the comments. Now, these issues that we're talking about, though, with the environment, with water quality, with hurricanes being out of control and bigger than ever these days, these are much more complicated problems. But technology can hopefully solve them. Say in the car world, well, one of the big polluters, if cars are polluters, and even electric cars aren't perfect because you got batteries and that requires heavy metals, and what do you do when you dispose of them and recycle them and all that stuff? Who makes the electricity? You want to be as efficient as you can with driving, right? You want to get as many vehicles off the road as you can. So one way to do that is for self-driving, and that's the technology. Once you have self-driving, do you think think we're gonna have this? Let's put it this way: do you think parking lots, impervious surfaces, right? If we think lawns are bad for the environment, that they create more runoff, and they're not as good as a forest would be in the East Coast of the United States, what do you think parking lots are doing? They're completely impervious, right? The water hits them, it's running straight off, it's going directly, and it's picking up all the oil and grease off the parking lot surface, any gasoline you spill at the gas station, and it's throwing it right into the water. This is just how it works, okay? We don't need to debate anything about this. This is just how it works. This is the system that we all live in. So if self-driving cars take over, which they will in the near future, we won't need as many parking lots anymore because most vehicles will be driving all the time unless they recognize that they have a problem mechanically, and then they'll drive themselves to the repair shop and get fixed. But they won't be just sitting around. If you look around most urban, suburban areas, even in the country, look at all these parked vehicles. They're just sitting around, not doing anything. Well, that requires space and usually impervious surfaces to park them on. So going to the newer and more advanced technology is going to help the environment in ways that you haven't even thought of. Okay, and I know there are more ways, and if you have any other ways, let me know in the comments, but the elimination or reduction of parking lots is going to have a dramatic effect on the reduction of impervious surfaces that cause direct runoff of pollutants into our waterways and destroy our water quality. So if you really care about our water quality, another thing you can do is to buy a fully electric vehicle, one that is capable of self-driving. All Teslas are at this point in time. I know this is going to sound like a commercial for Tesla, but they're the only company that is mass producing cars right now that people can actually afford, because I think they're the least expensive brand new one. You can get ones that are used. Brand new is like $37,000, okay? Least expensive. And that will be capable of full self-driving in the near future. It already has all the hardware. It's just a matter of downloading the software, which they're continually connected to the internet at all times, so you don't have to worry about it. It does it automatically. You just tap a button and it does it, and then you'll have that capability in the near future. So again, these are another level that you as a consumer can do something about. It's going to help our water quality, no matter where you live, and specifically in Southwest Florida. Because the problem with Southwest Florida is, if you live in another area, you may be aware, hey, they make all these big developments and they put in these stormwater management ponds, so that all the runoff, Mike, that you're talking about from the parking lots goes into stormwater management ponds. And if you're familiar with stormwater management ponds, well, if they were engineered right, and if they're engineered recently, they probably will have that. If they're engineered in the past, they may not have any of this stuff. Or if you're in Florida, you really can't have this stuff in almost every location. But you have a stormwater management pond where all that runoff goes into this pond. It sits there, it fills up, it gets bigger, and then you've got this drain that's up here. And it's not until the water level rises up to that level that it starts to run into the drain and into the nearby creek. So it filters out most of the pollutants before they go in, which is a great idea. But unfortunately, in Florida, you don't have these things in most cases. You can't, because most of Florida was actually a swamp. People came in trying to make as much money as they could off of the state of Florida, and they developed things in areas that never should have been developed. And I know if you live in Florida, you're probably saying, well, this neighborhood over here shouldn't be developed. Well, your neighborhood probably should never have been developed either. None of them, with a few rare exceptions. Almost everything was what's considered today to be wetlands and unbuildable. Okay? And the problem is that you're living there now, if you're in these areas, and when your stuff runs off, where does it go? It goes directly into the water. There's no stormwater management pond. There's no way to even put one in there. Okay, so everything that happens in Florida is like exponentially more important, or not just Florida, any coastal area that's really low lying and flat and continually flat, where they don't have any of these engineered, civil engineered modern developments. But Florida is almost a whole state, which is why I'm talking about Florida. That's why all these concepts that I'm discussing are exponentially more important to the state of Florida than they are to um, really anywhere else. Okay, and I think if you're not understanding that, let me know in the comments. Let me know your questions. And like I said, if you have questions and you're watching this video live, right now it's 12:56 p.m. East Coast US time. If you're watching it live, just go to VeganVideos.info, find the live stream, and you can type your comment in there. But hopefully, if you've been following along all this, and if you've missed some of it, by all means go back, because this video will be here, wherever you're watching it, it will be here once it finishes processing and I turn it off to watch again. You can share the video, you can take the whole video and share it. You can tag your friends in it, whatever. But these are very, very complicated matters. But the biggest highlight here for Florida, and again, let me show you why am I so concerned about Florida. Well, this is our premier event, our flagship event. It happens in Florida. And there's an environmental crisis right now with the water quality, but let's fix this. Oh, I thought there was a trick for this one. I hold it my hand in front of this and then I move it away. Ah. All right, I'm gonna try one more time. That's my stomach growling. I need to eat lunch. There we go. There we go. It worked. Okay. So Florida is exponentially more affected by poor lifestyle practices and poor local management practices than most places. So my guess is that as we move forward, new practices and procedures will be developed in Florida that we use in other places, but only because it's more important in Florida right now and not quite as important or not quite as noticeable, because all the runoff that happens at the higher lands, it goes down to the lower lands. Okay, it doesn't usually stay in your area, but you're still affecting somebody lower. Or if you eat seafood, which you shouldn't eat, it's an animal product, that you're poisoning the oceans. Okay, so just remember that. Anything that you do that's improper anyway. If you're perfect, great. Okay, but I'm not perfect. Most people aren't perfect. We can all learn. If you review this video, you'll understand all the different ways that you can improve, do better, and there's ways that haven't even been thought of yet that will be out soon. So just keep learning. That's all I can say is keep learning. And then we won't have any problems. We'll be able to solve this if we all keep learning. If we all decide we know it all, that's where you have a problem. All right? Nobody knows it all. I don't care who you are. Nobody does. We're always learning new things. That's kind of what drives this economy, actually, in the United States. It's an amazing economy right now, like it's never been seen before. But that's because we're always innovating and developing new things, and that's what keeps it growing. If we decide we already know it all and we stop, that'll also destroy the economy in the process. All right, so what are some of the technologies that are going to be used in the future? Let's go back to the non-organic farming methods for crops. And for that matter, your landscape maybe. Now, I don't know what the landscape's going to look like in 20 years. I mean, ideally they'd be native, they'd be organic landscapes without irrigation, unless it's needed in an extreme circumstance, not regular irrigation, let's put it that way. But weeds, I believe, are going to be solved by technology, because robots are the next thing, right? Well, with weeds, the whole idea is, first of all, what is a weed? A weed is just something that you don't want. It doesn't mean it doesn't serve a beneficial purpose of some kind, of some type, because usually it does. And actually, a lot of these weeds are growing natively. They're native plants, so they usually are beneficial. So whenever you start pulling out weeds, just the whole concept of that is usually wrong. Not necessarily always wrong, but usually wrong from a native plants landscape, unless you've got some invasive weeds coming in. Then you want to get rid of those. But that's a whole other topic we're not going to get into, invasive plants. Let's get into weeds in general. Techniques for getting rid of weeds. Don't use chemicals. Okay, I don't think that in the future chemicals are going to be used as a method, or even a preferred method, or any method. Just like in the future, it may be hard for you to believe that in the near future, you won't be driving your car. Some car will be driving you around. It seems very hard to understand that. But if you think about it and you apply that same concept to, you're not going to have to spray weeds anymore. You're not going to have to spray crops to kill the weeds. And like I said, the whole glyphosate Roundup thing, the way that works is they've been genetically modified so that when you spray the good crop, let's say the corn that you eat, whatever crop it might be, you don't have to spray. You don't have to worry about getting spray on the corn. You spray the whole field with your weed control, like douse the whole field. And the way that works is it gets sucked into the plant, so it gets sucked into the corn, gets sucked into the weed, and it kills all the weeds, right? But it doesn't kill the plant because it's been genetically modified to accept that chemical, that toxic chemical, yet remain alive. And of course, they say there's no negative side effects to you eating that, but do you really believe that? If you are eating a chemical that will kill every single other plant non-selectively, yet this one was genetically modified, and yeah, that chemical gets sucked into the plant, and yeah, you eat the plant, you know that's going to do something to you. The only question is what? Just like a lot of this stuff. You want to avoid chemicals as much as you can. If you need them in an emergency, if you need them, use them, take them. But don't make a lifestyle out of consuming chemicals or applying chemicals continually. That's what we're talking about. So the robots are going to take over with the weeds. You won't need to use these ridiculous spray toxic chemicals across entire fields methods and eat the toxic chemically treated plants. And of course, you don't need to do that today as long as you're eating organic plants that are actually truly organic and they haven't lied to you. That's a whole other video. But the weeds are going to be taken care of by robots. Because if robots can drive you around, because your car will basically be a robot, and that's a very, very, very complicated thing. There are some people out there that are watching that say, that's never going to happen. Not in my lifetime, but it will. They're going to solve this puzzle. It's a puzzle. It's a technology puzzle, and people are working feverishly right now on doing that. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of incentive for innovation like that. Like I say, innovation is what's driving everything. So with the weed control, that's another area of innovation. They will make specialized robots that will drive around your fields, or I don't know, fly around, who knows, and they'll be picking the weeds. They're not going to apply any chemicals. They're just going to pick them, and maybe they'll move them all over to a compost pile. Maybe they'll leave them on the fields to decompose there. I don't know. But if you think about it, if a robot, because there's no human effort on that, except for building and programming the robot, one-time cost, and maybe a little bit of maintenance, that's all you got to do. It's going to be the easiest method. It's going to be the least expensive method. It's going to have zero, if any, environmental negative impact. Zero impact to you because you're not going to eat any plants that were doused in chemicals, where chemicals were absorbed into these plants before you ate them. And who knows what kind of cancers you're getting from that. I have no idea. But I guarantee you it's not good. And yeah, you might live to 100 and never get anything, but somebody might be killed at age 23 because of some ridiculously weird disease that they picked up, or cancer, or who knows what, and because they were affected so much by this the negative consequences of these side effects. But again, I think we all agree, if you see how complicated these systems are that we have set up, these life systems, they're all going to be improved. It's only a matter of time, I think, and it'll all be beneficial. But for right now, we're living in this middle area where you as an individual, if you spread the word, look, you're watching this on social media, right? And if you want to comment, oh, there's Elizabeth Zirkle. Hey, Elizabeth from Wake Forest. How's it going? You can watch, Elizabeth, if you're just getting in here, you can watch the rest of my talk. If you look at this video, it'll spool around for a little bit and process as soon as I get done, and you can watch it again. But if you have any questions, you want to type me more questions, if you're in a Facebook group, you can type. It'll appear, but I won't get your question. Facebook pages, I will. But go to VeganVideos.info and type your question there. So anyway, so we're just about at the end of this video. I've gone like almost an hour-long rant and talking about, how the environment can be improved by you basically just making some different lifestyle choices. And I believe these lifestyle choices will be made en masse in the near future, and all this technology will take over and put these older, antiquated, chemical-type methods, put them out of consideration. Because right now, The reason why the chemical methods are being used is because of cost savings to the end consumer. The end consumer realizes lower costs of everything because they're more efficient. But these newer, innovative, mechanical technology methods, that's what they are, mechanical, will supersede those, I believe, in the near future, which is great. It's great news. But you still have to use other methods, like I was saying. Still got to use organic methods. That's number one. So what can you do? What's the biggest thing? What's your takeaway from this video? You know, with climate change, whether you believe it or not, I don't care. It doesn't even make any difference. Because whether you believe climate change or not, I think you understand, if you've been listening to what I'm saying about these worldwide systems that we have set up and the concepts involved, that they are hurting everyone's water quality. They absolutely are. The only question is, how much are they hurting it? So we want to eliminate. What's the best way to eliminate? It's organic practices of everything. And, you know, if you're talking about your residential commercial landscapes, native. You want native landscapes, but not just native. You want organic practices as well, because of all the reasons stated earlier in this video. So that's it. That's all I have to say for you guys for now. I don't know when the next video will be, but you'll be able to watch this if you're tuning in here at the tail end. My voice is going. This will spool up, it will start processing, and then you can watch it, you can share it. So hit the like button, tag some friends in the comments that need to hear this. You can hit the share button, you can share it to somebody. And, oh, two things before I go. VeganVideos.info, that's our YouTube channel that talks about this with our nonprofit. We have a nonprofit that's kind of dedicated to this lifestyle for people, animals, and our planet. That's our slogan. And then also, you want to find out about our events. We have events up and down the East Coast of the United States as well. You'll find out about all of them at VeganEvents.info. VeganEvents.info. Just go there. That's our calendar. Just kind of go down. PlantBasedDiet.org is the name of our nonprofit. Our next event coming up, big one, is in Wake Forest, North Carolina. Elizabeth Zirkle, you are in Wake Forest, North Carolina, so I expect you to be there. And that's Wake Forest Veg Fest. That is Sunday, November 3rd. And then Cape Coral Veg Fest, which is like our regional event. It's our smaller event. It kind of grew out, like our baby event grew out of Southwest Florida Veg Fest. That's going to be Sunday, November 24th in Cape Coral, Florida. Just go to capecoralvegfest.org, find out more about that. Look at our calendar, wakeforestvegfest.org, veganevents.info. Remember all this stuff. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the near future.